Hello everyone, and welcome back. Today, we're diving into a cosmic mystery that feels like it was written for a movie, except it's wrapped around something real. The interstellar comet 3I Atlas. Discovered in July 2025 and passing our neighborhood without posing danger to Earth. Now, here's where the story turns strange. Over the last few days, astronomers tracking 3I Atlas reported a new point of interest showing up in the same general corridor of space between Earth and the comet's projected path, an object that wasn't in earlier survey data. Before we go any further, I need you to do something for me. Comment your city and tell me if you've noticed anything unusual in the night sky lately. Not a star, not a plane, not a clean satellite tracks, something that moves wrong, pauses wrong, brightens wrong. And yes, subscribe right now, because this is one of those topics where the updates change fast, and the internet loves to mix facts with fantasy. I'm going to keep this entertaining, but grounded. We'll separate what is known about 3I Atlas from the wildest interpretations people are attaching to this in-between object. Here's the hook. 3I Atlas is real, hyperbolic, clearly interstellar, and being watched intensely by the big players. But the idea of a second object appearing in its vicinity, that's where speculation detonates. Because if something shows up in the same lane of space at the same time humanity is staring hard at an interstellar visitor, our brains do what they always do. They look for intention. So tonight, we're going to follow the breadcrumb trail. What 3I Atlas is, why it matters, what a dark object could be in purely natural terms, and why the internet is convinced it's something else entirely. Let's start with the real foundation, because the real foundation is already rare. 3I Atlas is the third confirmed interstellar object we've detected passing through our solar system. It was discovered by the NASA-funded Atlas survey in Chile and confirmed as interstellar because its orbit is hyperbolic as not bound to the Sun. NASA's own overview and FAQ emphasize something important. It's not a threat, and it doesn't come particularly close, about 1.8 astronomical units at closest approach. And that's why this is so perfect for internet mythology. When something is rare, fast, and far away, it becomes a blank canvas. People project everything onto it: secret propulsion, hidden agendas, ancient probes. Some commentary even tries to frame it like a sequel to Oumuamua and Borisov, two earlier interstellar visitors that sparked huge public curiosity. Now enter the rumor: an object between Earth and 3I Atlas, described in posts as unusually dark, unusually still, and unusually hard to detect. Here's the key. There is no official, confirmed NASA or ESA statement that a perfectly dark sphere has appeared. What we do have is a real interstellar comet being watched by multiple instruments, and a social media wildfire that feeds on the gap between we don't know yet and I know exactly what it is. So what do we do with that? We do what the best mystery stories do. We build plausible explanations first. In astronomy, dark doesn't mean alien. It can mean a small, rocky body with low reflectivity, or something positioned in a way that reduces glare detection, or something simply below sensitivity thresholds until the right observing geometry reveals it. But then the rumor adds the spookiest detail. The object isn't drifting like an asteroid. It's holding position. And that phrase, whether true or not, is gasoline. Because in space, station keeping suggests control, and control suggests agency. So next, let's explore what holding position could mean without invoking sci-fi, and why it still makes people's skin crawl. If you've ever watched time-lapse footage of the night sky, you know the rule. Things move, stars smear, satellites draw clean lines, space junk flashes like a camera strobe. So when someone claims an object doesn't move, it feels like the universe broke its own rhythm. But here's a truth that's both comforting and annoying. Motion can be deceptive. An object can appear still if it's moving directly toward or away from us rather than across our line of sight. It can appear to hover if its apparent motion cancels out against background motion at the moment you observe it. It can look fixed if it's at a gravitationally interesting location, like a Lagrange region where stable positioning is easier. Now, do we have public evidence that this alleged object is at a Lagrange point? No, but the rumor uses that kind of language because it sounds technical enough to feel real. And that's why this story spreads. It borrows the texture of science. Meanwhile, the real science around 3I Atlas is already enough to keep astronomers busy. NASA describes it as an interstellar comet, meaning it exhibits cometary activity. And the observation campaign is time-limited because it's passing through and then it's gone. Articles this week also highlight that it's being tracked across multiple platforms and that it will be closest to Earth on December 19, 2025. So here's the entertaining what-if pivot for our video. Imagine you rerunning a global observation campaign, and during the campaign, a faint object shows up where it shouldn't. Not bright, not flashy, just there. The kind of there that makes scientists recheck their calibration, then their software, then each other. The internet says it's a black sphere, a watcher, a shield. But science would ask simpler questions first. Is it a previously uncatalogued asteroid? A background galaxy? An artifact? A transient detection? A processing error? And yet this is the part that makes it fun. What if it isn't any of those? What if it behaves like a node, not a rock? What if it appears only when we look at 3I ATLAs, like it's reacting to our attention? That's not evidence. That's storytelling. But storytelling is how humans test fear. We aim it at the sky and see what echoes back. Let's talk about the dark object description, because that's the most viral detail. People calling it perfectly dark, absorbing light, no heat signature. In reality, no heat signature is usually shorthand for too faint at the wavelengths and sensitivity used, not breaking physics. An object can look dark for boring reasons. Many asteroids have extremely low albedo. They reflect very little sunlight. If one is small and far, it's basically a stealth pebble. It can also be tumbling in a way that reduces specular reflection, making it harder to catch. And if it's cold and distant, it might not stand out in infrared the way a warmer body would. But here's where the narrative gets spicy. The rumor claims it's not orbiting normally, station keeping. It's matching Earth and 3I Atlas. That kind of language is lifted straight from spacecraft operations because it's the vocabulary of intentional behavior. So let's run the entertaining scenario like a thriller. Imagine two interstellar visitors, 3I ATLAS, a genuine comet with a hyperbolic trajectory, and a second object that appears in a way that suggests it's not a passive traveler. Now your brain starts building a map. You start seeing a pattern. You start thinking about nets, cages, and borders. And the internet loves borders. The internet loves the idea that our solar system has a fence we didn't know about. Here's the grounded part. We do put fences in space, metaphorically. We track near-Earth objects. We maintain catalogs. We coordinate observation networks. NASA even has a planetary defense office that coordinates monitoring and risk assessment for objects that equates that approach Earth. None of that requires aliens. It's just responsible astronomy. But the rumor pushes further, that multiple identical objects appeared in a geometric pattern across the solar system. That claim has no reputable confirmation, and you should treat it as fiction until proven otherwise. Still, fiction can be useful because it forces us to ask, if something truly wanted to stay hidden, what would it look like? A bright ship? No, it would look like noise, like background, like a dark, unremarkable dot. It would blend into the biggest camouflage in existence, space itself. So whether this in-between object is a misread asteroid, an artifact, or a rumor inflated into a myth, it reveals something real about us. We're not just watching 3i Atlas. We're watching ourselves watch it. Now we hit the part of the story everyone secretly came for, the message angle. Because if there's one thing humanity cannot resist, it's the idea that the universe is speaking, especially when it speaks in math. The transcription you gave leans into structured signals, repeating patterns, and the idea that it intensified when we reached a milestone. In real life, scientists do study radio signals and unusual transients all the time, and they apply careful skepticism because nature makes weird patterns too. Pulsars were once jokingly labeled LGM for little green men until the mechanism was understood. So here's how we make this entertaining without turning it into misinformation. We treat the dark object as a narrative device, mysterious dot that turns a real event. 3-1. Atlas passing through into a suspense story. Picture the scene: a control room, late night, a screen full of speckled stars. Someone zooms. A pixel refuses to behave. It's not drifting like the rest, so software flags it. A second telescope checks. It's still there. Then a third. Not bright. Not moving the way it should. And suddenly the most terrifying sentence in science is spoken. We need more data. Because we need more data means you. We're not allowed to conclude anything yet, but your imagination has already sprinted ahead and built a cathedral of conclusions. This is where the audience becomes part of the show. You tell them to go outside, to look up, to report, to participate. You turn passive viewers into a distributed sensor network. That's not crazy, citizen. Science is real. It's just that the internet collapses the line between observation and interpretation. So in our video, we frame it like this. 3i Atlas is real and being monitored by major agencies and observatories. Meanwhile, a rumor spreads about an object between Earth and the comet. If you see something unusual, record it safely, compare it to satellite tracker apps, and share what you can responsibly. And then we lean into the suspense. If the object is real, why is it there? Is it watching the comet? Is it watching us? Or most unsettling, does it exist to prevent contact between the two? Let's talk about the quarantine concept, because it says the most cinematic part of your transcription. The idea that something isn't arriving to greet us, but to contain us or protect us. From a storytelling perspective, it's brilliant, because either interpretation is terrifying. If we're being contained, it implies we're considered dangerous. If we're being protected, it implies something else is worse. And if both are possible, then we're stuck in a logic trap where the sky itself becomes a courtroom, and we don't know whether we read the defendant or the witness. Now, in reality, the reason 3i Atlas matters is simpler and more beautiful. Interstellar objects are samples from other star systems. They can teach us about chemistry beyond our solar neighborhood. That's why space agencies and astronomers care so much, and why coverage this week emphasizes observation, opportunities, and ongoing tracking. But your video isn't a textbook. It's entertainment with a scientific spine. So here's the spine: a real interstellar comet passing through. Observed by multiple instruments, close approach coming soon, no threat. And then a speculative shadow. An unexplained object that appears to hold position. Now we stage the big idea. If advanced intelligence exists, it might not communicate like humans want. It might not broadcast radio messages. It might communicate by altering geometry, by placing objects where any civilization will notice them. The way a sign communicates without words, a barrier across a road, a fence around a field, a blinking light at a border. So if our fictional dark object is a sign, what does it say? It could be, do not approach. It could be, observe only. It could be, you are not ready. And then we hook the audience back into reality. The closest approach of 3i Atlas to Earth is December 19, 2025. And it will still be far away, about 1.8 astronomical units. So the real danger is not impact. The real danger is misinformation. In other words, The scariest thing about the sky is how quickly we fill it with our fears. Now we go full thriller for a moment because you asked for entertaining. This is the part where the object changes. In the transcription, it's smooth at first, then patterns appear, then it activates. That's classic escalation. The mystery doesn't just exist, it evolves. So imagine this. In the first images, the object is a dark dot, nothing special. But then, across successive observations, it begins to show structure, not a glow like a star, but a faint, organized shimmer, not random flicker. Geometry, repetition, the kind of repetition the human brain associates with design. Your viewers are going to ask, is it a natural process? And the honest answer in a fictionalized video is, maybe. Nature does make patterns, crystals, standing waves, magnetic field structures. But nature rarely makes perfect patterns at human scale that look like circuitry. That's why people freak out, because our brains evolved to recognize intentional marks. A footprint, a carved line, a symmetrical shape. Then we raise the stakes. The object doesn't just glow, it transmits. Not necessarily in radio, not necessarily in light. Maybe it's a timing signal, a periodic pulse detected indirectly. Maybe it correlates with observation windows appearing only when our instruments are aligned in a certain way. And here's the twist that makes a great Part 7, the message ISNT for us. The pulses point outward in the direction of 3I ATLAS, like a lighthouse aimed away from shore, like a warning sent to the visitor, not the locals. That would flip the narrative. Maybe the spheres, if they existed, aren't watching us. Maybe they're watching the comet. Maybe 3I Atlas isn't just a comet in this story. Maybe it's a courier, a carrier, a key. And then we pull back responsibly and ground the audience again. In reality, 3I Atlas is being observed because it's a rare interstellar comet. And mainstream scientific coverage overwhelmingly treats it as natural, even while some speculation exists at the edges. So your video becomes a controlled ride, real science at the base, speculative thriller on top, and honesty in the narration about where fact ends and imagination begins. And this is where we land the plane. If you're watching this because you want a clean answer, is it aliens? I'm not going to insult you with fake certainty. The real universe is more interesting than a rushed conclusion. Here's what we know in the real world. Comet 3I Atlas exists. It's interstellar. It was discovered July 1, 2025 by Atlas in Chile, and it passes no closer than about 1.8 astronomical units. NASA is actively sharing observing information and tracking context. Here's what we do not have from reputable sources. Confirmed evidence of a perfectly dark sphere between Earth and 3I Atlas performing station keeping, or a network of multiple identical objects forming a containment geometry. Treat that as a fictional premise, unless and until credible primary sources confirm otherwise. But fiction matters because it reveals our instincts. We live at a moment where humanity is peeking into the interstellar ocean. We're still new, still loud, still learning to read the sky without turning it into a mirror of our anxieties. So I'll leave you with the question that makes this story work. If something truly did appear in the corridor between Earth and an interstellar visitor, would it be there to greet us, to watch us, to stop us, or to protect us? Now, thank you for staying until the end. If you found this video helpful or fascinating, make sure to subscribe, comment your city, and share this with someone who loves space mysteries. And, if you want, Part 2, where we break down the most likely natural explanations for dark detections in telescope data. Me in the comments. Stay curious, stay grounded, and I'll see you next time.